Initiating virtual tour.
And we are live!
Actually, this is pre-recorded.
Hello there! You made it! Welcome to the virtual tour of the University of the Philippines, Cebu. I'm Annie, and I am a proud alumna of UP Cebu. And between just you and me, I had the best 4 years here in UP Cebu. I came from the College of Communication, Arts, and Design, where we did not learn only the basics in journalism and other communication components, but they also taught us how to become relevant.
You only have one viewer.
My college is also home to the fabrication laboratory, where people meet and converge to use different equipment where they can fabricate things, stuff for the advancement of industrial and product design. All of this comes from the creativity of the Fine Arts program itself. Hey, Sean, why don't you tell them more about the Fine Arts program?
The Fine Arts program itself, founded in 1975, is the pioneer formal school in the fine arts outside the national capital. The college is also the host to nearly half a century-old annual painting competition, Jose Hoya Awards, in honor of the famous national artist Jose Hoya, and from whom UP Cebu's Jose Hoya Gallery was named after.
As the campus of the premier university here in the Visayas, we have to be good. No, we have to be better, or even we have to be the best, not only in the humanities, but even in the sciences as well. Isn't that right, Sean?
That's right, Annie. In 2014, UP Cebu CENVI, or the Central Visayas Center for Environmental Informatics, came up with high-resolution maps using LiDAR technology. The use of this technology by UP Cebu CENVI provided government agencies with accurate data for more precise community flood risk assessment and management. This helped local government units make informed decisions based on data science and, in the process, maximizing their financial resource utilization. And in the case of the Naga Cebu landslide of 2018, UP Cebu CENVI's use of LiDAR technology allowed for one of the fastest search and retrieval operations in a disaster in the Visayas.
Helping the community through the sciences is very fulfilling. But we were not just exposed to that. We were also exposed to the social sciences, from political science to psychology, and all of these concepts helped shape our mindsets to become better citizens. In fact,
the College of Social Sciences articulates and addresses global challenges. The college offers comprehensive and appealing programs for high school, undergraduate, and graduate students. The Master of Education program is a non-thesis graduate program designed for graduates of the Bachelor of Elementary Education or Bachelor of Secondary Education who want to pursue their professional preparation through future studies in areas relevant to teacher education.
And of course, there were also budding business leaders in campus. They were the ones who had the nose for business, but had the big heart to be of service.
Under the School of Management, students are not only taught to be decision makers, but the forerunners in marketing and finance. It also hones those interested in further studies of this field through its Master's in Business Administration program.
Today, I am now a practicing broadcast journalist, an opinion columnist, an entrepreneur, a teacher, a better person, really. All of this because of my training and experience at UP Cebu.
Nurtured to create, inspired to innovate, destined to serve. We at the University of the Philippines, Cebu are driven by academic and operational excellence.
And that's it. Thank you so much for joining this virtual tour. I'm so happy you took part. Oh, look, Sean, a lot of people are tuning in.
But the tour is over.
Well, we'll just do it again.
Ready when you are, Annie.
Reinitiate virtual tour.
Ikaw na ko pag-usap sa kalibutan kay
Kabalo ka magbuhat og puso dong?
dili.
Maglala ka og lukay, magbuhat ka og kasing-kasing, sudlan og humay, lungagon, tanawa. Murag busog nga dughan. Ug kani makahupay sa kagutom.
Gusto na to ang kalibutan, tay.
Kung gusto nimo, makabot ra gyud nimo. Maningkamot lang gyud ta. Kinahanglan, lig-on gyud ka. Komplikado ang kinabuhi. Makat-on ka sa bisan unsang kasinatian. Hugot lang gyud ang pagtuo. Sa ngadto-ngadto, ligunon ka sa panahon. Manggihatagon ka. Ania ang kalibutan.
Before we proceed with the webinar proper, we would like for you to take note of the following reminders. This webinar will be recorded. We will be keeping tab of the proceedings for this webinar for documentation purposes. You're free to leave if you feel uncomfortable that this session will be recorded. Please mute your microphone during the talk. We want to make sure that the speaker's voice is clear to everyone. We may opt to remove you if you don't follow this request. Refrain from taking pictures or videos of the talk. If you do so, you will be held accountable of data privacy violations if the copy you created leaks into other internet outlets. We wish to keep the identity of our participants private, so as yours as well. Please avoid using the annotation tool. Once the annotation tool is activated, you might unconsciously swerve your arrow towards the speaker's presentation and draw unnecessary lines that may block the participant's view on some texts and images on the slides. If you have questions while the talk is ongoing, you may put them in the chat box. After the talk, you will have a chance to ask your questions. We wish for you to only use the chat box rather than voice because of our time constraint. Don't forget to evaluate. Your inputs in the webinar will help us improve our next webinars. After you have answered the forms, you will be given a proof of participation. Also take note that the evaluation link will be opened right after the webinar and shall remain open for only 15 minutes. Our webinar is currently live streaming on our YouTube channel. For those watching through the YouTube Live, you will get your proof of participation by staying until the end of the session. We will be announcing the instructions at the live chat, so please stay tuned. Before we proceed with
Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Science and Technology Week celebration of the University of the Philippines, Cebu. It is a very great and bright morning today here in Cebu City. I am Annie Perez Gallardo, and I come from the College of Communication, Arts, and Design, jump shipping now this morning to the sciences as we celebrate the different researches and talk about the different advancements that we have in science and technology. Now, the National Science and Technology Week is a celebration that highlights the significant contributions of science and technology to national development. It has since become a platform for science and technology advocacy in the country, and it is held every fourth week of November. And other activities apart from webinars such as these are basic and applied research, technology transfer. There are awards given, technology commercialization, and science and technology promotion. There are also scientific meetings, technical and investment forums, technology demonstrations, and technical tours. So welcome to the celebration this week. Now, the University of the Philippines, Cebu joined 2 out of 5 activities for this week. And this morning, we will be talking about the different government-funded research conducted in UP Cebu. And this afternoon, we will still be together. We will be talking about the different research conducted by selected faculty members, which is also part of their PhD studies. So I hope you will also join us this afternoon and not just this morning, because it will be a really interesting day. Now, to formally welcome and open our program, let us have our Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Cebu, Attorney Lisa D. Coro.
Thank you very much, Annie. Good morning. My audio is clear enough. Okay, good morning to everyone, to the Department of Science and Technology officials, especially to Secretary Fortunato de la Peña and Undersecretary Rowena Guevara, and the whole of the DOST team. To all our attendees, both from UP Cebu and outside, our presenters, reactors, and to all my colleagues in UP Cebu, once again, let us have an enjoyable and a learning morning today. Thank you for being here with us today and in manifesting your interest in UP Cebu's celebration this year of the DOST's National Science and Technology Week 2021. We have prepared a 3-day worth of knowledge sharing, and we will be providing you a glimpse on the interesting and useful outputs among the various research initiatives undertaken by UP Cebu to help out communities o kung giunsa namo pag-abag ang among komunidad. And most of these researches were generously supported by the DOST, from studies on marine heat wave under Project SHIPS, greenhouse gases emission for GHG project, black soldier fly for waste management under BSF project, and solar cell efficiency. Of course, this also includes the groundwater project and as well as the flood monitoring and management project under the Center for Environmental Informatics. We will also be presenting, as mentioned a while ago, highlights on dissertations of our recently graduated PhDs, the online teaching method used in the field of robotics, and a technology developed in our very own technology business incubation facility, UP Cebu Init, and on how the creatives community had been assisted by the UP Cebu Fabrication Laboratory, or Fab Lab. This is what you're going to expect for the 3-day period that we will be celebrating the NSTW 2021. I hope you are ready to learn and soak in as much as you can. And to our speakers, presenters, and reactors, thank you for your conscious effort to become more involved and responsive to our people's needs. As DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña stated in his keynote speech during the opening ceremony of the DOST NSTW 2021 last Monday, science and technology is crucial in addressing the pandemic. And for as long as there is science, there is hope. The holding of the NSTW 2021 is a determined move of our government to make our people conscious of the role of science and technology in ameliorating the economic and social conditions of our people. Giunsa nato pag-abag. This NSTW also serves as an opportunity to recognize the achievers in science and technology. I would like to thank DOST for their push for NSTW, their commitment to an intensified universal promotion of science. Our science and technology efforts should be directed and integrated for maximum and immediate utilization. This is what DOST refers to as science for the people. The immediate and future impacts of our scientific work should be adjusted to the expanding demands of everyday living. Scientific work should be aimed at increasing, expanding, and improving our current conditions, propelling us and our nation forward. As an educational institution, we are tasked to inculcate in our scholars the opportunities and needs in science careers, and we re-examine the status of our professors to improve our teaching quality. Altogether, the promotion of science must be integrated into the broad base of society, inside and outside of our university. As such, the financing of research almost immediately comes to mind, since the overall establishment of research entails heavy investments. But with the help of DOST, CHED, and other agencies, we are able to achieve all of this. In this age, we cannot expect to keep up with the pace of progress if we cling to ancient concepts and persist in pursuing old practices. As scientists, you should be more outward looking and attentive to the growing needs of our constituents while keeping our ears close to the ground, paying close attention to the latest trends, developments, and issues that affect both the domestic front and the global community. In closing, I welcome you all again to UP Cebu's 2021 NSTW celebration. I wish nothing but success to our scientists, artists, business people to strengthen our economy and the prosperity of our people. Padayon ug daghang salamat. Back to you, Annie.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Liza Coro. May we give her a virtual round of applause here in our Zoom meet. Thank you so much. And I really agree when you said, Chancellor, that as long as there is science, there is hope. And we also would like to thank those who have supported the University of the Philippines, Cebu, in its endeavor to provide researches and other community activities that the LGUs have been using through science and technology, such as the Department of Science and Technology, CHED, among others. Again, thank you so much, Chancellor Coro. Now, we also have a special speaker this afternoon. She is the Undersecretary for Research and Development of the Department of Science and Technology. She holds a BS Electrical Engineering and MSEE degrees from UP Diliman and a PhD EE from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Her area of specialization is speech and audio signal processing, time frequency analysis, and synthesis. She is the first woman dean of the UP College of Engineering and has been the recipient of several awards in engineering and education, including the Metrobank Foundation Search for Outstanding Teachers of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, let us also give another round of a virtual applause to Dr. Rowena Cristina Guevara.
Department of Science and Technology Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña, Attorney Lisa D. Coro, Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Cebu, members of the DOST family and the UP Cebu family, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, magandang agham po sa ating lahat. I'm quite pleased to be with all of you today as we kick off the nationwide celebration of the National Science and Technology Week, or NSTW 2021, with a regional event led by the University of the Philippines, Cebu. For more than 6 decades, the NSTW has been a platform for our outstanding scientists, researchers, inventors, and innovators to celebrate the role of science and technology in national development. The need for science remains during the pandemic and beyond. This year's theme, Agham at Teknolohiya, Tugon sa Hamon ng Panahon, illustrates the need of the nation to close the gaps in health, nutrition, business, livelihood, transportation, peace and protection through science, technology, and innovation. Since 2020, COVID-19 has challenged government leaders to rethink strategies to maintain safe, healthy, and prosperous communities. It was also a time when other branches of government freely collaborated with DOST in creating new strategies to advance their goals. It is worthy to note that the Philippines, through the DOST, is part of the worldwide network of the United Nations Solidarity Trials for Therapeutics and for Vaccines, wherein scientific data from each member country is given due credit and significance. Noting the need for readiness in terms of availability and supply of vaccines, we are investing in the establishment of the Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines, or VIP, the country's premier research facility encompassing all areas in the study of viruses and viral diseases for humans, animals, and plants. Through this endeavor, we're hopeful that the Philippines will soon be at par with the rest of the world in vaccine development. We're also pushing for the continuation of the Science for Change program through the Science for Change bill. Given the rapid demand for innovation during the pandemic, the bill aims to address disparity in R&D funding in the regions and lack of R&D in the private sector. The Science for Change bill would allow DOST to build on the milestones achieved by the program since 2016, which includes the funding of 38 niche centers in the regions for R&D spread out in 17 regions, including UP Cebu's Center for Environmental Informatics, or CENV. These NICERs are considered innovation hubs in the region, providing capacity building initiatives throughout the country. Another subprogram, the RD Lead, deployed 42 RD leaders in 16 regions to share their expertise and promote regional development through R&D. For business innovation, the Science for Change subprogram, Collaborative Research and Development to Leverage Philippine Economy, or CRADLE, created fruitful partnerships between private companies and the academe and RDIs. We're also assisting private companies in their R&D efforts through the Business Innovation through Science and Technology, or BIST subprogram. R&D is not a small investment, but it is an investment that provides big returns. Beyond infrastructure and programs, the DOST also invests in human resource. This is the reason why DOST recently launched the S&T Fellows Program, which aims to further capacitate the DOST agencies in fulfilling our vision of providing world-class scientific, technological, and innovative solutions leading to higher productivity and better quality of life. It has always been the goal of R&D to deliver lasting change for the benefit of the people. COVID-19 may have crossed borders and created new health concerns. The same process can be applied by our Filipino science community by breaking barriers, opening channels of communication to share research, data, and expertise to ultimately defeat the pandemic. I'm glad to share this day to celebrate NSTW with you, and I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincerest gratitude to our Filipino scientists, researchers, engineers, chemists, and project leaders. Thank you for making change happen and equipping the country through your innovations in fighting, surviving, and hopefully soon defeating COVID-19. Maraming salamat at muli, magandang agham po sa ating lahat.
Thank you so much, Yusek Guevara. Magandang agham sa ating lahat. And the importance of research and development to the advancement of our country is very not just important, but one thing that every sector should also look into. Now, our event today is called Project Abag, helping communities through research. Abag coming from the Cebuano term to help or to aid. So Project Abag, we want to help communities, and we can do that through research. And UP Cebu has been very fortunate that we have received approval on our various projects with the goal of helping communities. And this morning, we will have a look on some of them. And should you have any questions on the specific projects, please hold them, or you may type them on the chat box and we will read it later as we will allocate a time for a short open forum. And also don't forget to put the name of the presenter or the specific project that you are interested in. One issue in the environment that we are so much concerned of is global warming, and it has been there since time immemorial. Dr. Isa Cortez Aguilar, who is a graduate of PhD Envi Engineering from Osaka University, will tell us more about her project. She is also an assistant professor in UP Cebu and specializes in climate change mitigation and sustainable urbanization. Let us welcome Dr. Aguilar for her project, the GHG Project.
The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, otherwise known as the UNFCCC, has said that we should limit global warming below 2 degrees Celsius. To respond to this call, the Philippines submitted the nationally determined contributions in 2015, in which the Philippines promised to reduce 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions in 2030. But based on the principle of we cannot manage what we cannot measure, Philippines must firstly perform a national inventory of greenhouse gas emissions sources. And in order to do so, there must be a local inventory first, and then there must be sectoral level inventory and business level inventory. Being a national university, it is the role of the University of the Philippines, or UP, to lead the education sector in the greenhouse gas emissions inventory calculations. Thus, the conception of the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Project, otherwise known as the GHG Project. My name is Isa Cortez Aguilar, and I am the project lead of the GHG Project. Under the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Project, there would be a comprehensive inventory of the greenhouse gas emissions in the academic sector using UP Cebu as a case study and as a model for the other academic institutions in the Philippines. There are two phases of the project. Phase 1 is what we call business as usual phase, and this was already finished, in which there was an inventory of the greenhouse gas emissions in 2018, which is the base year. And this was funded by UP Cebu API Research Grant, and it spanned for a period of 1 year. Right now, the GHG project is in phase 2, and which is also the main focus of this presentation. In phase 2, we look at the effect of the pandemic and how the shift to online learning has affected the greenhouse gas emissions in the academic sector. Based on the results of phase 1 of the GHG project, phase 2 tries to answer the following research questions. First, what is the flow of solid and water waste in UP Cebu? This is because on the first phase of the project, it was determined that solid and water waste are the main sources of greenhouse gases in UP Cebu. And second, how did the emission profile of the university change when lockdown was implemented in March 2020 and when there was a universal decision to shift the class from physical to online learning? And third, what emission strategies are now ideal under the new normal setting? The second phase of the GHG project is now funded by the Japan ASEAN Science, Technology, and Innovation Platform, which is under the wing of Kyoto University. Also, in this phase of the project, we collaborated with a solid waste expert, Dr. Leticia Dos Machangos of Osaka University. Hopefully, she will give light into understanding why solid waste is the greatest emitter of greenhouse gases in UP Cebu. The project has started in April 2021 and will end in March 2022. At present, the project GH3 has only 4 people: the project lead, the collaborator, and 2 student assistants. The 2 student assistants are undergraduate students who are also working as an intern of the project. These students are currently being trained for greenhouse gas emissions calculations as well as carbon sequestration calculations. Thank you very much for listening. Should you have any concerns related to the greenhouse gas project, feel free to contact me at accortez@up.edu.ph.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aguilar. That was a very interesting project. And we have a reactor on the project, or to give some comments. Let us have Mr. Jason Nieva from the UP Cebu Technology Transfer and Business Development Office. Mr. Nieva.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Engineer Albert Baston and the CDNO, we would like to thank Dr. Isa Cortez Aguilar for conducting this research and using UP as a case study. It is indeed an eye-opener to learn that the source of UP Cebu's highest emissions are solid and water waste. Now, the main task of the CDNO is always to ensure that the campus is clean and that wastes are kept to a minimum. However, it can only do so much. We also need the assistance and help of everyone from the students, faculty, the staff, and even the visitors to ensure that everything is clean and that wastes are kept to a minimum. We believe that this research is very timely, considering that during the pandemic, and likely even in the new normal, these wastes have a hazardous component added to them because of the addition of face masks. The CDMO, though, will always do what it can to make sure that the campus is safe, and this includes the janitors and the campus maintenance staff. We hope that we can work together with Doc Isa to reduce the emissions here in UP Cebu, and are excited to develop a program that other institutions and communities can adopt.
Okay, so if you have missed the first few lines of Mr. Nieva, he said that the project is an eye-opener, most especially for a school in a metropolitan such as UP Cebu that is in Cebu City, and he hopes that it will be very useful and that he and others will be able to work hand in hand with Dr. Aiza on this project. Now let's go to the seas, no? From the environment, from air, gases, let's go to the seas. And we have with us an assistant professor in the Department of Biology and Environmental Science of the College of Science of the University of the Philippines, Cebu. He has a PhD in environmental biology degree from the University of Essex, United Kingdom. His research interests include, but not limited to, the following areas: microalgal physiology and ecology, climate change ecology, environmental biology, and thermal biology. He is currently the project leader of this next project that aims to assess and predict marine heat waves and their impacts in the Philippine seas. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have Dr. Bristev Edulantes as he talks about Project Ships.
Good day, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the DOST-funded project entitled Survey of Heat Waves in the Philippine Seas, or also known as SHIPS. I am Bristev Edulantes, the project leader of the SHIPS. The project will investigate the development of marine heat waves. Let me begin by defining what is marine heat waves. Marine heat waves, also known as MHW, are discrete and prolonged periods of anomalously high sea surface temperature. Marine heat waves events pose a threat to local communities that depend their livelihood primarily on fishing and aquaculture. These events have negative impacts on marine ecosystems, such as the irreversible loss of species and loss of habitats like seagrasses and coral reefs, which have implications for the provisions of ecological goods and services. Therefore, the devastating effect of marine heat waves events on marine biodiversity, fisheries, and aquaculture have an adverse effect on the source of income for the fisher folks and sea farmers. With these documented biological impacts, marine heat waves assessment is therefore important in marine conservation, fisheries, and aquaculture management. Why SHIPS is launched? SHIPS will spearhead the study of development of marine heat waves in the Philippines. It will develop heat waves detection, monitoring, and forecasting in the Philippine seas. It will initiate impact assessment of marine heat waves. It will also develop prediction models to forecast the spatial and temporal distribution of marine heat wave events and their impacts. And finally, it will support the strengthening of LGU's capacity to attain Sustainable Development Goal by inclusion of marine heat waves assessment in policies for management and conservation of marine resources. The project aims to study the development of marine heat waves in the Philippines and to develop models for assessing and forecasting the spatial and temporal distribution of marine heat waves in selected seas. The following are the specific objectives. First, organize a database of sea surface temperature and climate-related data, which will be used to assess and predict the development of marine heat waves. Second, automate data processing of sea surface temperature to detect, quantify, and classify marine heat waves. Third, conduct spatio-temporal analysis to assess the historical trends of marine heat waves and to determine hotspots to be considered as potential study sites for marine heat waves modeling. Fourth, examine the general relationship of climate-related data with sea surface temperature and predicting the development of marine heat waves. Fifth, develop seasonal forecasting models and or climate projections of the distribution of marine heat waves in the selected seas in the Philippines based on existing data and statistics. Six, create toolbox to evaluate and map out and predict the marine heat waves. Seventh, create tools, methods, and or products to effectively communicate data and information about the development of marine heat waves. Eight, explore the application of these predictive models in the disaster risk management and or management and conservation of marine ecosystems of the selected LGU to improve their capacity in planning towards attainment of UN Sustainable Development Goal 11, 13, and 14. To attain the project goals, the following methodology will be implemented. Marine heat waves in the Philippine area of responsibility will be assessed using the long-term sea surface temperature records. The historical trends of marine heat waves in PAR will be examined, and the coastal waters identified as hotspots will be selected as study sites. The climate-related data in the selected sites will be used as explanatory variables to examine the physical mechanisms that influence marine heat waves. Contingent on the available data in the selected sites, seasonal forecasting models will be developed to test the predictability of marine heat waves and their relationships with the physical mechanisms that drive these events. Future changes in marine heat waves will be predicted based on the global climate projections. Web applications will be developed with built-in predictive models to perform assessment and prediction of marine heat waves events. These web tools will be made accessible to stakeholders, which are useful in improving their capacity for disaster risk management, marine ecosystem management, and conservation of marine ecosystems. The table presents the timeline for the attainment of the specific objectives of the project. To summarize this table, the project will focus on the nationwide assessment of marine heat waves in the first year of implementation. On the other hand, the development of predictive models and tools to be used by the beneficiaries will be implemented in the second year of the project. The project started officially last October 15, 2021. Since then, we already completed the recruitment of personnel who will be working with the project. You can connect with us through our social media accounts at Facebook and Twitter. We will also be sharing news and blogs through these accounts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brisnev. He's here also with us today, and I have a few questions for you, Sir Brisnev. If you are
Hello, good morning.
here. Yes, good morning and welcome to Project Abag. Sir, how do you identify marine heat waves? It's very interesting, especially that a lot of us are so interested in always going to the sea or to the beach. What are marine heat waves?
All right, as I have presented, marine heat waves are identified based on climatological mean and variance that are quantified from historical sea surface temperature records. So by using the sea surface temperature records, marine heat waves can be detected when extreme temperature exceeded the 90th percentile threshold beyond a period of 5 days. So these events can be classified into different categories based on their intensity. So marine heat waves, again, would actually differ by location and time and of the year. And these local differences would actually describe different categories of marine heat waves, again, based on intensity.
And what causes these heat waves, sir, and the impacts that it has?
Based on the studies, marine heat waves would actually influenced by a number of factors, but most of the study would actually these marine heat wave events would be influenced by, like for example, regional climate patterns, teleconnection processes, and local processes. So, for example, for regional climate patterns, we have the ENSO, that is irregular periodic variation in winds and SST. over the tropical eastern Pacific Ocean, and that would actually influence the climate over the tropic and subtropics region. Also, marine heat waves are influenced, as I've mentioned, the teleconnection process that would include mga climatic and weather patterns that connect geographically distant areas. And as furthermore, the development of marine heat waves is also attributed to local processes such as mga thermocline stability, mga ocean advection. And I just want to highlight that understanding these physical mechanisms, such as the regional and local climatic weather patterns, would actually helpful in understanding how marine heat waves how marine heat waves is able to develop. And it's, again, understanding this would very important for developing tools for assessment and prediction and mitigating their impacts.
So the project, sir, as we understand, is just for 2 years. What's the plan after the project is finished? What will happen to the data?
As I have presented, we will be creating maps to show the spatial and temporal distribution of marine heat waves, and we will also produce models to predict the development of these extreme events. At the same time, in order to do that, we'll be collecting remotely sensed sea surface temperature data within the territorial waters of the Philippines, which will be processed and analyzed for detection and characterizing the marine heat waves. And the data, maps, and models will be managed securely in a server and will be made accessible to the stakeholders through a web application. And this web application can be accessible through UP Cebu server and can be mirrored to servers of the partner institution. So Project SHIP do acknowledge that the importance of establishing a long-term partnership with the OST, PAG-ASA, and BFOR for the implementation for the long-term data management plan to ensure the preservation and archiving the data generated by the project. And I think will not be able to give you more details on that, but that's the only details I could actually provide for now.
Thank you so much, Sir Brisnev, and we look forward to the secret details that will be unveiling soon in the future. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Brisnev Edulantes.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Should you have any questions for Dr. Edulantes, just type them in the chat box and we will have time later to read your questions and they will also answer whatever is on your mind for Project SHIPS. Now let's go to solid waste management. Garbage has been also a pressing issue for us, especially that we live in a metropolitan, and as the cities get congested, more people come in to live, there is also a lot of problem when it comes to solid waste management. Now, this person will talk about her project on solid waste, and she is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Chemistry at the University of the Philippines in the Visayas, which is located in Miagao, Iloilo. With her continued pursuit for learning, she obtained 2 master's degrees. One is a Master in Chemistry and 2 Master of Science in Environmental Science. She earned her PhD in Chemistry at the University of Aberdeen in Scotland, United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Flordelis Maglangit to talk about the BSF project.
Good day, everyone. Today, I will present our project, Black Soldier Fly Farming for Agricultural Productivity and Waste Management. This project has a duration of 2 years, and this started in September 2021. The project is in partnership with Chesed Farm under the DOST Cradle Collaborative Research and Development to Leverage Philippine Economy Program. Chesed Farm is located in the Visayas, in Liloan, Cebu, and Chesed is a supplier of quails to farmers in Visayas and Mindanao since 2015. And recently, they have also ventured into native and free-range chickens. The challenge is the solid waste management problem in Chesed, which also happens to be a common problem in surrounding farms. Along with this problem also comes a host of other issues, including housefly infestation, high ammonia levels, and water contamination. Our solution is the incorporation of black soldier fly technology in Chesed Farm. Black soldier fly, or Hermetia elucens, has 5 main stages in their life cycle. The adult fly lays about 500 to 900 eggs, and generally, the eggs hatch in 4 days. The eggs, after 4 days, are then converted into larvae, which has a lifespan of about 13 to 18 days. The larvae are voracious eaters of organic wastes, consuming twice its body mass daily on average. Each larva can consume up to 200 milligrams of food waste per day, including animal manure, human waste, decaying fruits and vegetables, and food wastes. So through these larvae, we can solve our problem in Chesed. And these larvae will then undergo melanization, resulting in a dark coloration in its cuticle to form the prepupae. And during this stage, it will stop feeding and finally to pupae and to the adult fly. The adult fly are neither pest nor disease vectors, but they are considered beneficial insects. They do not have mouth parts, stingers, or digestive organs, thus they do not bite or sting. The adult fly feeds on nothing except water, and they rely on the fat stored in their larval stage. The flies mate and lay eggs in 5 to 8 days, and shortly after having oviposited, the female dies. So aside from being an economical and environment-friendly solution to the waste problem, BSF technology also has the potential to generate valuable products out of something that no longer has any economic value. And this provides a sustainable and circular economy model to farming while providing new market opportunities to the farmers. So this technology will also produce organic frass from the bioconversion process. And this organic frass can be used as soil amendment to grow plants. Aside from that, the BSF larvae also contain a high amount of protein and a well-balanced amino acid profile. Thus, these insects offer alternative sources of animal feeds to the increasingly high costs of commercial feeds. Thus, the technology will not only have an impact to the farm and community, but also to the economy as a whole. And lastly, previous research has also shown that BSF larvae are a rich resource of antimicrobial compounds, making it a promising area for antibiotics research. BSF thrives in decomposing bacteria-rich pathogenic organic wastes, and living in such environment requires a potent immune system. Hence, the project will also conduct metabolite extraction and profiling to assess the medicinal potential of black soldier flies. And this subject might unveil an exciting field of antibiotic discovery. So to give an overview of the project, let's watch this video. UP Cebu, in partnership with Chesed, will process biowaste using black soldier fly larvae.
Problem here at Chesed Farm is waste management, and along with this problem comes a host of other issues, which includes housefly infestation, high ammonia levels, and water contamination, which are detrimental to the health of farm workers and the
Through this technology, we will not only address the waste problem in Chesed, but will also provide new market opportunities, such as nutrient-rich organic compost and protein-rich animal feedstock. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you also, Dr. Maglangit, for that presentation. Now we have with us the owner of Chesed Farms. Chesed Farms, by the way, has been in operation since 2016, and it has supplied quails and chickens not only in Cebu, in Visayas, but also in Mindanao. And its owner will tell us how the BSF project has benefited their livestock, their farmers, and as well to other industries related. Let us welcome Ms. Ruby Sasha Alos Baños.
Good day, everyone. This is Ruby Sasha Los Baños, and as someone who works closely with livestock, I'm really thankful that this project is implemented. In fact, I'm very excited about the outcome of this project and the implication of this technology for us livestock farmers. Waste management has always been a problem in poultry farming, and even those who are engaged in other livestock businesses will agree with me on this. So, a bit of a background. There are many livestock raisers in our barangay, especially backyard hog raisers and layer chicken farmers. I have seen how this problem created social tension within the community. Unpleasant odor and fly infestation can make enemies out of neighbors. On top of that, our farm, as well as many other farms in our area, are situated near a river. Some of the waste makes it to the river. So this problem will not just affect the community, it will also take a toll on the environment. Animal waste can contaminate our water. In our case, we use the septic tank system. But with the amount of waste we generate every day, I don't think that's a sustainable solution to this waste problem. So to have a technology that will take care of all these issues in one go is truly heaven sent. Plus, it doesn't just solve our waste management problem. It has the potential to create a new market for us. Now we don't have to sun dry the manure in order to market those as fertilizers. BSF will do the work for us and convert the manure into compost. And another thing that I would like to highlight is that currently there have been several increases in commercial feed prices. Livestock farmers everywhere are feeling the burden of these increases. So to have an alternative protein source for livestock will help lighten the burden of high feed costs. On that note, I would like to thank DOST for funding this project through its Cradle program. To UP Cebu, Dr. Fleur Maglalit, and the rest of the BSF team for implementing this project. BSF project is something that will not just benefit Chesed Farm, but other livestock farmers and other industries that generate tons of organic waste as well. In fact, I believe that BSF technology has the potential to change the landscape when it comes to livestock farming and organic waste management. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you also, Ms. Ruby Sasha Alos Baños, for sharing how BSF project is a big help to your company and to the industry that you are in. Now let's talk about renewable energy. It has always been a problem as well where we can get our resources to fuel our energy. Now, this person, who is an associate professor at UP Cebu and has been teaching physics for 25 years, will tell us how to achieve renewable energy. He obtained his doctorate degree in physics at the National Institute of Physics at the University of the Philippines, Diliman in 2009. His current fields of interest are lasers, microscopy, and materials science. Ladies and gentlemen, let us please welcome Dr. Raymond Sarmiento.
Good morning to everyone. The title of my presentation is Solar Energy Research, Image Mapping of the Energy Conversion Efficiency. This is a DOST T-shirt funded project. I'm the project leader. My name is Raymond Sarmiento. I'm affiliated with the Department of Biology and Environmental Science, University of the Philippines, Cebu. The outline of my presentation is just two parts. I'll give the motivation of why we do our research, and then proceed to show some initial results of our study. So we know that the world heavily relies now on the use of fossil fuels, which are non-renewable. So it's either coal, crude oil, or natural gas. And of course, some statistics, developed countries such as USA and China, the total consumption from fossil fuels are 81% and 87.7% respectively. Whereas the Philippines, a developing country, data from 2014 shows that we're just using 62.4% of our energy coming from fossil fuels. However, recent data from the Department of Energy shows that we have now become more reliant on fossil fuels. So we're up to 75% of our total consumption coming from fossil fuels. What's interesting in their data is that the Visayas now leads in the harnessing of geothermal and solar energy. So the reason for why we have to wean ourselves off from the dependence on fossil fuels is because of the climate change. And the science of climate change is pretty well established. Back in 400,000 years ago, we can track the global temperature as correlating with the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere. Right now, we are drastically increasing the levels of CO2. So this is a very steep increase now happening over a century or two. Okay, so it's now more than 350 parts per million. Since then, we have identified other culprit gases that causes greenhouse effect, such as methane and nitrous oxide. And of course, the evidence, physical evidence for climate change are undeniable. So increased ocean acidity, warmer oceans, rising sea level, more droughts. So we can actually experience this. Just recently, there's a conference, a UN conference in the United Kingdom, just this November, calling for immediate actions to limit rising temperatures. They propose, and about 200 countries signed up for this. They propose green innovation, protection of forests, and reducing methane emissions. And the answer seems to be pointing in the direction of efficiency. So not only for efficient electrical devices, but also efficient energy harvesting devices such as solar cells. So why is this the case? It's clear, because solar energy is free. We have sunlight 365 days a year in most places. And the intensity at the surface of the Earth, is quite high, about 1,400 watts per square meter. And other reasons, the Philippines is near the equator. And of course, going solar because it's already cheaper, because of advancement in the synthesis of materials. Right now, the record for solar cells, efficiency of solar cells is by the University of South Wales, having an efficiency of 34.5%. So now, what can we do in the Philippines? So when we wrote the proposal, we have several realizations. The first is that we cannot compete with the rest of the world in synthesizing new materials for solar cells, mainly because of the fact that developed countries have started way back more than 50 years ago. So it's difficult to set up a laboratory that can make efficient materials, no? Fabricate and synthesize these materials from scratch. And also another realization is that many equipment for materials research are expensive, no? Such as SEM EDX, Raman scattering, and X-ray diffraction, which are in the millions of pesos. So with this realization, we realize that we can develop a low-cost, non-invasive, non-destructive technique or techniques for mapping different characteristics of materials and devices. And specifically, we targeted solar cells. So the DOST project is entitled Image Mapping of the Energy Conversion Efficiency of Solar Cell Active Areas Using Photoexcitation and Photothermal Techniques. This is an ongoing project. We're now in the third and final year of the project. And we have a budget of 5 million, with about 2 million for developing this the model for the device. There are 3 objectives to the project. So the first and second objectives propose an automated high-resolution scanning measurements, no, of different characteristics of the sample, no, using different techniques. And the third objective, okay, evaluates if it's feasible for the technique to be patented. We now call a simple name for our setup would be a confocal scanning efficiency mapper. The picture on your left is the actual setup. So it's about 1 square meter by 1 square meter. And the right side is the schematic diagram of the setup, no? Showing the different optical elements. Okay, so what's the technology about? Okay, so the technology is, first we shoot a laser and focus it onto the surface of a sample. Some of the light will be reflected back. No? If we scan the laser over the sample surface, now we can construct an image of the reflected light pixel by pixel, now producing something like this. Okay, simultaneously, as the light excites the semiconductor, it produces a current voltage characteristic, or an IV curve per spot on the sample. So we process several thousands of this at one time and come up with an efficiency mapper or other photovoltaic parameters. So it's a map of, in this case, for example, efficiency. So the work involves mostly assembling optical elements, no, in the setup and automating the data acquisition. And we believe it's patentable. I now show you the simulations and experiments we have. We have modeled solar cell devices using a well-known equation called the Shockley diode equation. So we can get IV curves if we modify different characteristics of the laser, such as different resistances. And we look at the effect on the efficiency. Okay. So we can produce images, IV curves similar to this at different conditions, and convert those, several thousand or sometimes millions of those IV curves into maps of efficiencies. So these are two examples of efficiency maps with equal average efficiencies, but one having distributed point defects while the other one has concentrated defective sites. We can also investigate if we vary the illumination intensities of our laser. So from 4 times as much down to a P sub 0. So we can now get total reflectance images, confocal reflectance images. So these are examples of a 5 millimeter by 5 millimeter image of a small region of the solar cell. In this case, it has a resolution of 50 microns. So this is now an experimental result. We're still processing data for efficiencies right now. So I apologize for not showing it here in this presentation. So right now, we are writing a patent draft. And hopefully we can apply for a patent before the end of this year. So far, we have made 8 claims. And we're still consulting our collaborators regarding this. For potential partners, University of San Carlos, UP Diliman, Furen Catholic University in Taiwan, and for the industry, SunPower Corporation or Maxian Technologies. So to summarize, our research, in our research, we promote the use of renewable energy, particularly solar energy. We provide an answer to help materials researchers, the academe, and the industry to fully characterize their solar cell materials and devices by mapping their characteristics. The third, we have demonstrated a comprehensive understanding of the mechanics of solar cell energy conversion in photovoltaic devices. And last but not the least, we think our research can be a niche for materials researchers in the Philippines for applying new technology to completely characterize different materials. And thank you. I'll be happy to entertain some of your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you also, Dr. Sarmiento, for sharing that wonderful project. It is indeed very tedious, but would give a big impact to our industries when it will be fully developed and it will soon reach it will be flourished. Somebody here would also want to react on the project, a process automation engineer. This engineer is from Emerson Automation Solutions, which provides both on-site and remote technical services. She graduated with a degree in electrical engineering from the Mindanao State University, Iligan State University. She took the EE board exam in May 2009 and obtained 3rd place. Her other work experience includes teaching at the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines and served as a local consultant for zero carbon resorts for sustainable tourism for the GRAT Center for Appropriate Technology. Let's have with us to react on the project on solar cell, Engineer May Alelan Pagal.
Hi, Dr. Sarmiento. My name is Maya. I'm from the Automation and Sustainability Industries. The bottom line of the study, based on my understanding of the available data in your presentation, is that this will serve as a template for low-cost capturing and mapping of solar cells' fundamental characteristics. And consequently, this will inform us better in terms of how efficient a solar cell actually is. So there are 3 points that I'm curious about. First is the precision of this method in contrast to the more traditional, expensive ones in providing us a picture of how efficient a certain solar cell or solar panel is. In assessing this technology's value, one can easily think that it will be a matter of precision and cost. Well, I would like to assume that the resolution is sufficient to be able to capture useful data. Not necessarily as accurate, perhaps, but that which will contribute and possibly provide another perspective that is worthwhile to the optimization efforts being done in this field. So that's my number one. Second is, well, if this technology will prove itself to be comparable to the expensive ones and will indeed get us from point A to point B at a much lesser cost, I'm curious to know what are the researchers' thoughts on its implementation outside of the lab environment. What are the currently perceived roadblocks? I would imagine this to be a method of choice actually in research. And even in an industrial setup, this might evolve to provide good visualization on energy conversion efficiency to businesses. In an environment where maximizing the use of solar energy in powering up business operations will have extremely significant impact, yeah. So yeah, I think that's it. And then lastly, I'm curious to know how AI can fit in this setup if this hasn't been considered already. My impression is that this current study can potentially serve as the backbone for more advanced technologies. And I'm quite excited how this effort will make progress in probably 5 years from now. So yeah, it's an exciting time. Right, so those are the top 3 that I have. I'm happy to be able to relay my thoughts and engage in this discussion, although not in real time for now. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you also, Engineer Maya, for those comments and questions. And to answer that, let's have back Dr. Raymond Sarmiento to answer Engineer Maya.
Hi, Dr. Sarmiento. My name is Maya.
I thank you, Engineer May Pagal, for your comments. So just one by one, your first comment is about the precision of our technology in comparison to the more traditional and expensive equipment. My answer is a bit complicated. I think it's not so much on the precision of our measurements, no, but on the output we produce. And that output is an image map of properties, no, particularly the energy conversion efficiency. And there are other properties that we can extract aside from that. Maybe except for the scanning electron microscope, all other expensive equipment I've mentioned, no? Raman, FTIR, XRD, those cannot produce maps of properties. So these apparatuses just give average measurements of related properties over the whole sample and not an image map of properties. For sure, the measurements they give would be helpful, no? And in fact, we use it to correlate with the energy conversion efficiency maps we measure. Now, compared to the scanning electron microscope and maybe include other imaging techniques, our method, we find that our method would have a lower imaging resolution. But for most purposes, I would say that it is good enough. I would add other benefits though for our technique. No? So it's low cost, non-destructive, and non-invasive method. So we can do measurements on a sample and later on we can still use that sample. So in this way, our technique would be a good candidate to be the first in line of characterization for solar cells before they proceed to characterizing using the traditional equipment, the more expensive traditional equipment. So in a way, you're correct in that our measurements give a different perspective. So the second comment is about the roadblocks to our technology. I can think of one major roadblock. Our measurement technique relies on a combination of optical and electrical methods. And I think there are very few people in the Philippines with a mastery of both. So for instance, we do not have a field like an optical engineering in the Philippines. No? So we apply this. This is an applied field, no, that is lacking in the country. So my solution is I let engineers work with physics majors or physicists in my project. So in a way, the field is relatively young in our country with very few qualified people. Now, your last comment is about the role that engineers and other technologies such as yourself will play, I think, in promoting or improving our techniques. So there's a lot actually. You're correct that this mapping technology can potentially branch out to other applications or even characterization of other materials, not just for solar cells. So in the future, technologies such as yourself should be in demand when this becomes a popular field to go into. My concern right now is to produce the outputs I have promised. No? If I would dare to dream, I would say that in 5 years we should still be actively engaging with industry and academic partners. No? So we ask them. So there should already be several universities and industry using our apparatus. And perhaps by that time, we could start designing improvements to the design of the apparatus, and maybe come up with a product, an equipment that can be marketed worldwide. So that's a dream. So I hope, Engineer May, I have satisfied your curiosity. So thank you again for your insights. Thank you.
Thank you also, Dr. Raymond Sarmiento, for answering and reminding us to keep on dreaming, because all of these research has started with an idea, with a dream, and now it is coming to its fruition. And these projects are also equally very exciting. But we also have more. And this is the heart, if I may say, of the science component of UP Cebu, the Center for Environmental Informatics, which is also more known as CENV. It ended its 3-year stint this August, but was able to produce 2 new engagements that's funded by the NRCP and the Department of Science and Technology. The first is a groundwater research network data on habitat hydrology observations Philippines, or more known as groundh2o.ph. It was developed under the RD Lead program through its RD leader, Dr. Jan Reb Earl Wanico of TIP Manila. The second is Smart Turf, or Smart City Solutions to Urban Flooding. This project was crafted in response to the perennial problem of urban flooding. The Smart Turf program is the first program-level research handled by UP Cebu with the active collaboration of other regional HEIs like the Cebu Institute for Technology University and the University of San Carlos. The project has chosen Mandaue City as its pilot site, and both projects are under the leadership of Dr. Jennifer Sinugaya. And now let's take a look at what CENV has done or will be doing. First, let's have groundh2o.ph.
The Earth is composed of 71% water, 97% of which can be found in our oceans, and only 3% is fresh water, the water that we use in many aspects of our daily life.
Groundwater is defined as water that is found beneath the surface of the earth. It has been considered an essential resource. From the largest city to the smallest village, groundwater produced via deep wells is used for various purposes across different sectors, such as agriculture, municipal, and industrial sectors. In fact, it provides almost half of the drinking water worldwide.
Metro Cebu, the second largest urbanized metro in the Philippine archipelago, an area of high economic growth and one of the country's densely populated areas, has far exceeded its prescribed limit of groundwater extraction. Though we have available groundwater potential maps, there is a limited amount of data about its availability, current state, and use. In other words, we often have insufficient insight into the water below the ground. Now, this is where the Ground H2O project comes in.
The Groundwater Research Network Data on Habitat Hydrology Observations Philippines, or the Ground H2O.ph, is a project hosted by the University of the Philippines Cebu and is currently funded by the National Research Council of the Philippines under its Grants and Aid program aligned with the National Integrated Basic Research Agenda on Water Security. The project aims to visualize the quality of the groundwater resource in metropolitan Cebu. The project will provide the fundamental data sets necessary to validate existing mathematical models of the groundwater transport dynamics. One of the deliverables of the research team is to assemble a data sensor instrumentation system that will be used for the efficient acquisition of groundwater data from wells in several locations across Metro Cebu. The research team also targets to collect groundwater data sets from water-stressed areas in Metro Cebu. The data collection technology would combine Android phones and sensors for mobile and flexible data collection. This would provide a seamless approach for the regular monitoring of the groundwater resources, a valuable tool later for smart cities of the future. Lastly, the collected groundwater data sets will then be analyzed and visualized in a form of a map that will be used as an input for decision support. The output of Ground H2O.ph will lay down the basis of predictive groundwater resource modeling for the Philippines, since this resource is largely unseen, unlike surface waters. Mathematical and statistical models could offer the most plausible scenario projections of its future state given present utilization practices and climate conditions. The mapping of water quality has a far-reaching socio-economic impact on the Philippines. The government, through its National Water Resource Board, can base their policy-making decisions on real-time data of the state of groundwater resources. The ability to acquire timely, quantitative information about groundwater resources indeed builds the capacity of the NWRB to fulfill its mandate of integrated water resource management. Consider that every year, over 2,000 times more groundwater is extracted from the earth than oil. Since we can't manage what we don't measure, having reliable data is critical. Knowing what is going on below can even prevent conflicts in the long term. The key is informed action based on sound research. With proper groundwater management, we can make sure that our groundwater can benefit many generations to come.
Okay, that was ground H2O.ph. And I've also seen personally how the metro, all the tri-cities here in Cebu are struggling and grappling to find sources for water. In fact, the Metropolitan Cebu Water District are bulk buying water supply from private suppliers, which would entail additional costs to the consumers. Now, with this project, we also could benefit from it. Now, we have here a Dutch national who has been living in Cebu for more than a decade. He is an environmental engineer who has worked as an instructor for the University of San Carlos and UP Visayas Iloilo. He is currently the GIZ-CIM integrated personnel for UP Cebu Senvi under the German government. His various disciplines include GIS and remote sensing, aerial mapping, environmental assessment, and urban planning. In his spare time, he also dabbles in street photography. And let us welcome Engineer Ubu Paques as he comments on the project Ground H2O.ph.
Secretary de la Peña, Undersecretary Rivera, USC reached 7 officials, UP Cebu Chancellor Coro, colleagues from CENTI, participants and guests. Good morning. The German government has been supporting the environmental protection, sustainable development, and the improvement of water, sanitation, and hygiene in schools in the Philippines for a long time. One of the tools that the German government provides is the integrated expert. Integrated experts, as you may know, positioned in key institutions, support their assigned organizations to grow and to develop its goals. As your integrated expert, I am happy to work with CENVI in the training and coaching of young and promising staff. And together with them, exploring ways to expand the research, advise on portfolio development, and introduce new technologies and methods. I would like to especially mention the exciting work we do in the Ground H2O project. Not only do we develop tools and methods that can be applied in the whole of the Philippines, we also apply and elaborate on these in our home turf, Region 7. This shows that CENVI can have a sustainable future as a research institute for Region 7. Also, as integrated expert, I bring in academic and local knowledge in the GIZ Fit for School program by developing dashboards for the easy interpretation and sharing of WASH in schools, or WINS, monitoring data within the DEFRAT system, and preparing relevant data for the pilot implementation of the resumption of face-to-face classes, including schools in Cebu. The restrictions placed on all of us during the pandemic have put strain on the ways we can cooperate and participate, and also the international ambitions we have. I hope that soon we can meet and work again face-to-face and move forward faster. I wish you a fruitful.
Thank you so much, Engineer Yubo Paques, and also for helping out CENVI. May I remind those who are in this Zoom call, this Zoom meet, that if you have other questions and are still curious, would want to be clarified and elaborated by the project presented, please type them in the chat box so we can ask it to the specific researcher and they can enlighten you on your queries. Now let's go to SmartTurf. As I've mentioned, is smart city solutions to urban planning. So let's watch SmartTurf and what it has done and what it will be implementing to the city of Mandaue.
While famous for its world-renowned tubig, another kind of tubig has been a perennial problem for Mandaue City, the tubig baha.
Daling nabahan ang pipila ka mga lupang lugar sa Mandaue City sa kalit nga pagbundak sa awan kaganang buntag. Anang report ni
Flooding has always been a concern for Metro Cebu, especially for Mandaue City. The city is a water catchment where rainfall in its territory and surrounding mountains accumulate. Because of this, majority of its 600,000 population is exposed to the flooding hazard, either in their homes or on their commute. Flooding and repairs to the drainage system, which is often done manually, likewise cause traffic congestion in the city, which extends to the rest of Metro Cebu. In economic terms, 1.1 billion pesos is lost per day in Cebu due to traffic congestion. Hence, billions of pesos are washed away by flooding yearly, especially during the rainy season and during unplanned repairs to drainage structures. The formation of SmartTurf program sees the coming together of 3 of the region's top universities, namely the Cebu Institute of Technology University, the University of San Carlos, and the UP Cebu as the program lead. This meaningful partnership not only showcases each of the institution's capabilities, but also their commitment to bring science and technology closer to the people. But ASA, ASTI, and DPWH are also being tapped as collaborators. The city of Mandaue wants to solve the flooding problem ASAP through this collaboration. Science-based governance has taken root in Mandaue not only because of the openness of its leaders, but also because of the success of previous DOST-funded initiatives, such as Philader 1 flood hazard mapping and the recently concluded FireCheck project. The Philader 1 project, which ended in 2017, provided a general picture of the flooding hazards in Mandaue. However, in recent community risk assessments, it was found out that there are certain areas which were modeled to have low flood hazard but have flooding issues in reality. So what seems to be missing? We hypothesize that this is due to the drainage structures not included in the model. We share the vision of Mandaue to create resilient cities despite the natural hazard of floods. As they say, rains are a blessing if only we know how to deal with it. Our program, the Smart City Solutions to Urban Flooding, or SMARTER, aims to solve urban flooding through 3 steps. Number 1, getting the data. 2, modeling the flood. And 3, declogging the drainage. By providing updated flood hazard models, Mandaue can deploy engineering interventions to curb flood and plan future land developments conscious of mapped hazards. We want to achieve this through the Curb Flood project. But first, we need to get better data to know how floods are triggered at specific locations. For instance, how does spatial variations in rainfall distribution influence flooding events at specific areas of the city? We address this through Project Boston. Lastly, we need to make sure that the drainage system built to ease flooding are working. Clogging in the drainage disables what should have been a multi-million peso investment to solve flooding. We aim to have the Dracula do the dirty work of checking the condition of drainage structures so that clearing operations are done and early repairs can prevent major drainage dysfunctions. SMARTER will be operationalized as visualized in this diagram. At the center is the web platform, which will be built through Project Boston. The web platform, Flood.io, shall communicate with the sensors in the Post-it kits to acquire real-time rainfall and flood level data. Curb Flood develops the models and other scenarios to be used for government planning purposes and early warning baselines. Meanwhile, Post-it issues warnings when specific rainfall thresholds are reached. On the other hand, Dracula reports the drainage conditions. The decision support system output of Post-it guides officials based on the appropriate flooding scenarios taken from the current flood. Lastly, the public gets the latest flood warnings in their mobile apps, while also being able to report issues such as drainage clogging and flooding in their areas. We envision that the information that will be disseminated regarding the flood would be utilized by popular apps like Waze or Google Maps. For so many years, the public has been demanding for an immediate and concrete response to the flooding problem. Many interventions such as river cleanups, drainage declogging, easement implementation, and so much more have come up. Still, flooding remains to be a problem. In order to have a sustainable solution to flooding, a science-informed flood mitigation plan is necessary. In order to arrive at sound mitigation options, local governments, such as Mandaue City, need to be equipped with up-to-date, location-specific, and reliable flood threat information instead of a one-size-fits-all hazard assessment. Hopefully, the institutional collaboration between the academe and the government will make this breakthrough in addressing our city's flooding issues. Just think, Mandaue City was able to convert a forsaken dump site into a thriving eco-park. Through our collaboration, we are confident that we can also turn a natural hazard into a public asset.
Yes, that's right. And the flooding problem in the urban cities, especially in Mandaue City, is so alarming, no, especially that it's a traffic prone area and a lot of other untoward incidents could happen when it floods. Now let's listen to an alumnus of UP Cebu High School and used to be a government operations officer for Cebu City. And now, very timely, he is also the current head of the Mandaue City Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office. Let us welcome Mr. Buddy Alain Ibanez.
What Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations, which address urban development, is SDG 11, or the Sustainable Cities and Communities. The goal says that cities should be resilient to natural disasters and protect those in vulnerable situations while minimizing economic loss. The goal, noble as it is easier said than done, especially coming from a developed country visited annually by disasters. But it is a challenge that we accept because we know it will improve the well-being of Mandawehanons and make us future ready. The city of Mandaue recognizes the important role of research and development in making our city sustainable. As famed astronaut Neil Armstrong said, in much of society, research means to investigate something you don't know or understand. Research allows us to understand why things are happening and permits us to be creative and innovative in finding solutions to our problems. This is why our partnership with University of San Carlos, University of the Philippines Cebu, and Cebu Institute of Technology University is essential in our quest to be a resilient city. They aided us in collecting and analyzing data, particularly for our environmental and disaster risk management. Mandaue was chosen as pilot site by the DOST, again in partnership with UP Cebu Senbi, for the implementation of the Smart City Solutions to Urban Flooding, or the Smart Turf program. This program has three component projects, namely the first, the city-wide urban flood modeling project, or curb flood. The second, the drainage collar probe development for drainage inspection project, or DRACROLA. And the third, the interconnected posted kits for environmental sensing project, or POSTEP. The use of science-based approach to plan and finding solutions to the perennial problem of the city, which is flooding, will be addressed to save not just lives but billions of pesos in terms of economic loss due to traffic congestion because of flooding. These are just some of the examples where our collaboration has shaped this direction of Mandaue. Using research and development with Smart Turf team, we are able to use models to come up with sound plans and programs and develop tools for implementation and monitoring. We still have much to do. It is always a joy to work with like-minded people like the ones behind Smart Turf team. Thank you for all that you have done for Mandaue City. Together, we can make Mandaue City our home, our pride.
Thank you so much, Mr. Buddy Alain Ibanez. And he is right. There's still a lot of things to do, but it is very nice to hear that these researchers have been very instrumental in policy making of LGUs such as Mandaue City. Now it's time to answer some of the questions that the audience have raised to our researchers. And if you have some more, please type them in the chat box. We have one from Mr. Yubo Paques. I think this is addressed to the BSF project rather, to Dr. Flordelis Maglangit. He asked, do the quails or chicken also eat the flies or pupae? So if Dr. Maglangit
Hello, good
is here.
morning. Thank you for the
Good
question.
morning.
Yes, the quails and the chickens eat the prepupae and even dead flies. Chickens and quails even eat dead flies and also the prepupae. However, the prepupae has a higher chitin content, and the absorption of the nutrients by the chickens, it will not be absorbed that much compared to the larvae. So that is why we are feeding the larvae and not the prepupae, due to the high content of the prepupae.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maglangit. Are any other plans to expand your study, your research to other industries?
Yes, we would like to maybe in the future formulate feeds, because at the moment the commercial feeds are very, very expensive. So to have another alternative source of commercial feeds would be very, very helpful to our industry and even to the consumers of meat and other meat products.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maglangit, and for joining us this morning. Any other questions from the audience? We would gladly call on the specific researcher. Okay. Going once, twice. These researches are very equally interesting, and are addressing the different issues that we have now, especially in urban cities. So if we don't have any more questions, I guess they were all the researchers were all presented well by the respective researchers. Now, to close this program, let me call on our Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr.
Excuse
Yes?
me first.
Yes.
Anne. Yeah, just to inform the public in the event that they are interested to adopt any of this technology, either once they are done or they want to be actively involved in it. So the researchers had flashed their contact number, but they can also get in touch with the Office of the Technology Business Incubation or the Technology Transfer and Business Development Office, the address of Mr. Jason Nieva. And maybe Jason Nieva can also inform everyone through the chat box on how he can be reached here. So he just did, and kindly take a look at the chat box where you can email us in UP Cebu. Thank you very much, Anive.
Thank you, Chansey. There's another question from Mr. Yubo Paques. Do you have ideas on using the flies as well on septic tank slurry? I think this is still addressed to Dr. Maglangit.
Hello. Do you have ideas on using the flies? Could you further elaborate the question, please?
Mr. Yubo, if you would like to unmute
the flies
yourself.
have a very short life cycle, so they eventually die after laying eggs. Maybe only about 45 days. So after they die.
No, my question is actually, if you have a septic tank, once every so many months or years, it needs to be emptied.
Oh,
the
yes,
waste from
yes.
the waste from your septic tank is actually, I don't know where it's being dumped right now, but I assume part of that will be not completely legally. So if you have an option where you can use maybe these flies to first clean out your septic tank, clean the slurry, and after that you have less and maybe less dangerous waste to dispose of. Is that something you might want to look into?
At the moment, the Chesed farm is also using septic tank to clean up the waste in the farm. So that is something we will also look into, to use the BSF flies really in the septic tank. So that is a very good suggestion. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Yubo and Dr. Maglangit for answering his question. Again, I just want to reiterate also what Chancellor Coro said, that if any one of you would like to adopt or contribute to these projects and researches, you may get in touch with Mr. Jason Nieva, and he has dropped his email address on the chat box, but I'll just read it for you. It's ttbdo.upcebu@up.edu.ph. So we look forward to a lot of collaborations and partnerships in UP Cebu. May we also remind you to stay after the whole program, because we will have a photo opportunity. It's not normal for us to gather in one Zoom room with this very amazing researchers and doctors who have just presented their projects that are funded by the government. And let me just go back also to what I said earlier. To close our program, let us have Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Pat Nazareno, for her remarks.
For attending this webinar showcasing some of the researches of faculty members of UP Cebu. Majority of these researches are DOST funded. Through this webinar, UP Cebu is one in celebrating DOST's annual National Science and Technology Week with its theme, Agham at Teknolohiya, Tugon sa Hamon ng Panahon. They say that technology does not have to be scientific in its approach, but what makes a technology robust and sturdy is if it is backed up by science. Sustainable development can be achieved given the right tools backed up by science. So with the continued support of the DOST, we continue to conduct quality researches. It is our way of contributing to nation building. Again, thank you and good morning, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Pat Nazareno. At this moment, I invite the TLRC, Teaching Learning Resource Center, to flash their instructions on how to evaluate this webinar. It's also equally important that we get your feedback so we can further improve ourselves and to also get a feel of what you think and maybe suggestions also on what future webinars we may hold here at UP Cebu. So they have just flashed the reminders. Let me just read it. The evaluation and processing of e-certificates are automated, so make sure to type in the correct spelling of your name since this will reflect on the e-certificates. And be mindful as you type your email address because that is where the TLRC will send your certificates. And make sure to keep a copy of your responses in the evaluation so you can verify it in the event that you made mistakes in answering. Normally, it just takes 3 minutes, and after submitting, you will receive your certificate. Should you not be able to receive it by 5 p.m. today, just reply to the email, which is msgalorio@up.edu.ph, so they can manually send the certificate on the next working day. And the evaluation link is open for only 15 minutes. And at any moment now, the TLRC team will drop the link and they have just dropped it. It's on the chat box. You may click it now so you may be able to get your certificate for attending today's program. Okay, while you're at it, it will be open for 15 minutes. Let us now go to the part where we say goodbye and sing the song that we know by heart. And after this, we all enjoin you to please stay so that we can take a photo opportunity with everybody. Let's sing the UP hymn, UP Naming Mahal. ang pag-asa ng bayan, mabuhay ang science and technology, mabuhay ang UP Cebu. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we have just dropped again the link for the evaluation, so please check the chat box if you cannot open it at this moment. Now we enjoin you to please open your cameras for a quick photo op, and I am turning the virtual floor to our Public Information Officer, Ms. Van Guerrero, to take our photos for this morning. Ms. Van?
Hi. Thank you everyone for joining. We have 4 pages, so we don't know what page we'll land on, so let's all just smile for the camera, everyone. I'll just wait for the first page to fill up first. Okay. Sige. Everyone. 1, 2, wait. 1, 2, 3, smile page 1. Okay, moving on to page 2. Smile for page 2, guys. Page 3, 1, 2, 3. And then page 4. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ms. Van, and thank you to all the participants. We have 161 who are in the Zoom room today, and a lot of viewers also on the YouTube stream this morning. May we also enjoin you to participate in this afternoon's webinar. It will be about the research conducted by selected faculty members as part of their dissertation in their PhD, and it's called Going Up Usapang Pananaliksik. Okay, still research. And thank you so much again for joining us. I'm Annie Perez Gallardo once again from the College of Communication, Art and Design. It's been a fruitful morning, and we look forward to partnerships, collaborations, and more research, more technology to come as we build our community through science. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful lunch.